Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over the water to Denmark once again, and we're going to visit an organic brewery actually, so should be quite an interesting one. So for this one we are going to the little village of Herslev to visit the Herslev Bryghus, and we're going to have a taste of their India Dark Ale today, which is a black IPA. Now I've only reviewed maybe 3 or 4 black IPAs on the channel for you before, so this is most definitely my first organic one, so should be a really interesting review for us to do. But as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the company. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual website links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my future reviews that I'll do from Herslev, because this is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers. There's also the link there to the Facebook page for the channel, please like it, and also the Untappd profile, and feel free to add me as a friend on there. But as always, I hope you enjoy the beer reviews, and to my Danish viewers, please let me know some other Danish beers that you'd like me to have a look at. I live over in Lund, so I do make it over to Copenhagen every so often, and I will try and get the beers that you recommend. But anyway, to tell you about Herslev Bryghus. So Herslev Bryghus are located at Toftagard Farm near the small village of Herslev, close to Roskilde, and you're talking here on the island of Zealand, the one that has Copenhagen on it. Go about 30 kilometres to the west of Copenhagen, you come to Roskilde, and Herslev is just a little bit to the west of that. Very scenic place apparently, and somewhere that I need to go and visit. I need to go and explore Denmark a little bit more. But the brewery was founded in 2004 by Tore Jorgensen, and he bought this farm back in 1998. Now he'd worked as an agronomist for a number of years in many large firms. An agronomist is somebody who basically studies farm produce and then what you can actually do with that, like produce fuel, food, and all of these sorts of things. That's what an agronomist does, or at least that's my understanding of it. But basically, after working in these large firms for a number of years, he decided that he wanted to move back to the countryside and to have his own farm. But the brewery building is actually an old stable dating from the 1890s, and initially he was advised by his family and by locals to use the land for wine production, but he decided that he would actually cultivate the land and produce beer from it, or produce hops and things for beer. So really quite cool actually. They produce most of their own malt, and they import hops from all over the world for their beers, but they are a 100% organic brewery apparently. So the brewery use all organic ingredients in their beer, and they focus on local produce. They've got 30 hectares of their own land that are currently being converted for organic farming. So when you actually have a beer from Herslev Bryghus, you actually are getting something that's very local to Herslev and to the sort of Roskilde area of Zealand. So really quite cool in that regard. And they also have a farm shop and sell their own meats, cheeses, beer and spirits too. So there's a very interesting range of beer from these guys. So in their local range they've got the Pilsner, the Land Ale, the wheat beer and the porter. They've got the Cant range, which includes this guy. They have the Pale Ale, the India Pale Ale, India Dark Ale and the Bock beer. They've also got a few different seasonal beers. They've also got Mjolnir barley wine series, the Mark series of beers, which are quite interesting because they use hay instead of hops in the beer, and they also produce brandy and vinegar too. So a very, very interesting brewery. And as I say, go and check out the brewery website in the description below and you can read a little bit more about that. I will put an English translated version in there for you too, because the original website is all in Danish, and even for Swedish speakers apparently it's quite a hard language to get a grip of. So we'll try and get a hold of it. Well, you can have a little look at it. As I say, quite an interesting brewery to look at. But anyway, let's get stuck into this beer. I've been looking forward to this one for a wee while. It's recommended that you serve it about 7 or 8 degrees, which it is being served at. So I'll just let you have a little quick look at the artwork of this one. Quite a nice little bit of modern art. You can see there økologisk, and that is just the Danish word for organic basically, or ecological I guess it would translate to literally. On the back it tells you a little bit about the beer in Danish, but I looked this up on the website and it tells you basically they make their own malt and stuff. It's got dark malt in it. This one uses English chocolate malts and New Zealand hops apparently, so it should be a nice interesting one. It comes in at 6.2% and it's best before the 29th of December 2015. And you can see on the back it has the EU organic symbol, so should be a really nice one for us to have a look at. So without further ado, let's crack this guy open and we'll see how we get on. Oh, lost the bottle cap there, but yeah, I never showed you the bottle cap actually. Dropping it all over the place. There you can see that's the Herslev bottle cap. Normally I show you the bottle caps in the video, but I just forgot this time, so please forgive me for that. You can actually smell a good bit of fruity character and grassy hops off this one as you pour it out. We'll just pour a little bit just now and leave the rest for later on, but as you can see this beer's poured a really nice dark sort of rosewoody colour actually. So that's probably a good way to describe it, kind of a chestnutty, mahogany, rosewood colour. More of a rosewood actually, or maybe even a sort of ebony. I think wood is always a good kind of benchmark to use when you're describing the colours of these dark beers. So as you can see, there's about a half finger of a frothy, kind of beigey coloured head there. It looks really nice, not bumpy in the slightest. Definitely a nice frothy head on there. There's some big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass at the bottom there, but quite a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head, but looks really nice. And as you would guess with a beer this dark, you're not getting any transparency from it. Even if I kind of hold it up to the light there, it's only got just a little bit of a ruby edge to it, but looks very, very nice. So let's have a smell of this guy and see how we get on. Now that's really quite interesting actually. There's quite an interesting fruit character to that one actually. There's a definite citrusy note coming out of this beer. You can smell the fruity characters in this one. Maybe even a little bit tropical actually, but there's a definite fruit ester presence in this beer. But on top of that, that's quite a sort of mild background note actually. When you pour it out of the beer, it's quite prominent. When you pour it out of the bottle, it comes across as quite prominent. When the beer settles, you can smell it a bit too. But as you sugar the beer up a bit more, you're getting more of the kind of notes that you would expect of a black IPA. So there's a nice dark bready presence in this one. Some cereal as well. You can pick up a little bit of the graininess, a sort of brown bready note if you like. Definite toasted character, some chocolate malts as well, chocolatey sweetness, maybe a little bit of caramel actually too, and almost there is a definite kind of woody or nutty infusion in this one as well. But the hops are, once you actually get used to it a bit more, there are more hops coming out of this one. There's a definite grassy and sort of florally aromatic presence in here. And like I say, there's some fruity esters coming out of this beer. Reminds me a little bit of some of these Northwest Pacific hops kind of thing. There is a definite slightly tropical presence in there, but there is citrus as well. But you can just pay attention to that and you'll pick out the little fruity characteristics. I want to say it's a little bit orangey, but at the same time there is something of just a little tropical thing. Maybe, I don't know, passion fruit or a little bit of mango or something in there. Definitely not grapefruit, but there is a citrusy element to this beer. Maybe some oranges and, like I say, maybe a little bit of mango or something like that coming out. So it smells quite an interesting one, but overall the aroma is more malty, but there's a good grassy and floral hop coming out and some interesting fruit notes as well. So as I always say, take a bit of a smell before you actually try the beer, but we'll now get stuck into this one. So this is the India Dark Ale from Herslev Bryghus over in Herslev in Denmark on Zealand. Skål! It's really nice actually, very smooth. But as I say, just before you actually start thinking about the components of the flavour, sugar it around your mouth and just let your whole palate adjust to this beer. Particularly important when you're tasting dark beers actually, but this one's actually really nice and really quite sessionable actually. For me, a dark beer is always one that you try every so often just to enjoy. And just to taste, but for me this one actually comes across as quite a sessionable beer. Yeah, really quite nice. I always find with organic beers, you can taste, they've got a certain kind of mouthfeel in the malt base and you can really taste that in here. It's almost like it's a little bit dusty. The organic beers. We've got an organic brewery back home in Scotland too that's called the Black Isle, and you can always tell a Black Isle beer by the mouthfeel if you're tasting it blind, and this one has a very similar trait to it, I think. It's almost, in the bready characters of the beer, you can just pick it up. It almost feels just a little bit heavier and slightly kind of like an almost dusty, doughy flavour. It's really quite nice actually, and it's quite interesting for me how that often shows up in organic beers. I've had organic beers from Germany, one's from Scotland and now one from Denmark, and I notice it in all of them. So quite an interesting little trait in these organic beers. But the flavours in this one are much like you would expect from the aroma. The fruitiness is a lot less pronounced though. So in the middle of the palate, your tongue gets blanketed with this nice kind of big bready presence in there. It's a kind of brown bread flavour, but not quite as cereally as you might expect from the aroma, but just a nice smooth, not quite rye bread, but just a sort of wholemeal bread, if you like. Definitely blankets the middle of your tongue there, and it's quite toasted too. As you move further out towards the edges of the palate, you can feel just a little bit of that toasted character, and the malt base becomes a little bit dry. But there's a nice caramel sweetness goes down the middle of your tongue, and some chocolate sweetness in there as well. You can taste those chocolate malts coming out of this beer quite nicely. And there is a definite little infusion of maybe woody flavours or nutty flavours as well. Just pay attention to that right in the middle of the palate towards the back. You'll pick that up mixing in with the bready flavours. Really nicely done, and just a nice subtle note in this beer. And around the edges of the palate, you're getting the hoppy characteristics, which is what you would expect. So I want to say there's a little bit of earthy character in the very back corners of the palate, and of course that builds a good bridge between the malt base and the more hoppy parts of the beer. But the rest of the hoppy character is really quite smooth and quite grassy as you move further forward, and you can get just a little bit of a sort of floral aromatic spice from this beer as you move towards the back of the tongue. Really quite nice. We'll just put the rest of it into the glass there. This is a really quite enjoyable and quite sessionable beer actually, so I would recommend that if you see it, you do give it a go. I'm not sure exactly what its availability is outside of Denmark, but I'll definitely buy one of these again. No question about that. Really nice. But yeah, really smooth in the mouthfeel as well, but like I was saying, around the front edges of the tongue there's a definite kind of slightly floral character to the hops coming out there, and that gives it just a little bit more of a dry character around the front of the tongue. And just behind the front of the tongue you can get a little bit of a fruity character. It comes across as more of a slightly red fruity ester in this one. There's not so much in the way of the citrusy characters that you can pick out from the nose in this one. It's quite interesting that the nose, when it comes to the fruits, is really different from what you actually pick up in the flavour. Yeah, there is a little bit of red fruity ester in there, but you can, if you pay close attention to it, there is perhaps a little bit of a kind of citrusy flavour too, but that's not one of the more prominent notes of the beer. As I say, it's quite big, it's quite bready, some toasted character there, a nice little bit of chocolate sweetness, some caramel, and around the edges of the tongue, earthy hop, a bit more grassy as you move forward, and then finally floral around the very front edge of the tongue. But overall, it's a really nice and quite sessionable beer. In terms of the mouthfeel, I think it's probably fair to call this one mid-bodied. Yeah. I should just point out as well, you can feel a little bit more of those fruity characteristics coming out as you drink more and more of this beer. But yeah, beer is definitely mid-bodied, smooth carbonation, quite an oily texture to this one actually, but very, very smooth. It is more malt forward as you would expect, but the hoppy character is really well balanced, and overall the flavours, the thing with this beer that you can say is the flavours just blend together really well. There's quite a bit going on in this beer, but the flavours do blend together really well. The hops don't try and be sort of too bitter and too kind of forthright, if you like, but the nice malty base just goes together really well with the smooth aspects of the hop flavour in this. It's really nicely balanced, and I would recommend it to anyone that enjoys black IPAs. As I said, the mouthfeel with this one, it comes across as being a sort of almost kind of slightly dusty or slightly floury bready character this, and I've noticed that's a bit of a trait when it comes to organic beer. So this is one of the better organic beers I've had though, I definitely have to say that, so do go and check it out. But as I say, more malt forward in the mouthfeel, but a little bit of hoppy character around the front of the tongue, a little bit of dryness there, but there is a bit of dry character also from the toasted elements of the flavour in this beer. But overall, a really nice beer, and I'd recommend it to anyone who likes a black IPA. It's quite a sessionable one, so if you enjoy a dark beer and you want a nice sessionable one, then perhaps this is a beer you should consider trying. But I don't know where you can actually get it, so hopefully you guys can find it outside of Denmark fairly soon, but I would recommend it. So go and check out Herslev Bryghus from Herslev on Zealand in Denmark. Really cool brewery, and hopefully I can review some more other things. I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. As always, let me know in the comment section below your own thoughts on the beer. Always interesting to hear from you guys that are watching the videos. Until my next one, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. There will be more beer reviews from Denmark and some from Sweden as well. well, so do tune in for those, and please subscribe to the channel. Until my next video though, like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, add me as a friend on Untappd, and like the Facebook page too. Slàinte just now.